Hey everyone, welcome to the David Addison show, and this show is going to be a little bit different. So let me tell you what's happened. I recorded this podcast, and when I listened to it back, I sounded like this. 16, you were uploading to Instagram, and then Apple just slid into your DMs, did they? Or did they send you a letter or asking you to do the iPhone 7 campaign in Tokyo? Which is very strange. So I recorded the intro and I sounded absolutely fine. I recorded the outro and then I recorded the main body of the interview with my guest, Laurence Bouchard. And yeah, then I sounded like that. So obviously I want to upload the episode. It contains loads of valuable information and I think it's going to inspire you. I think there's a lot to learn from the conversation that I had with Laurence. So I don't just want to get rid of the episode and just not release it. I was going to release it as it sounded, but I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So I've decided to re-record all of the bits that I said. So the conversation is going to lose a bit of the natural flow, a bit of the back and forth. Now it's turned into more of a Q&A, but it's better to listen to me sounding like this and have me as a waveform as opposed to me sounding like this. So what was their brief like? Did they just say neon go, or were they after a... So I'm sure you can appreciate that. I'm looking into what happened. I really don't know. Like Laurence, when we spoke, he didn't say I sounded bad or anything like that. He said I sounded fine. So maybe it's something to do with the software that I use to record these podcasts. I don't know. Obviously, he sounds fine. So, I'm really not sure what's going on there. So I'm going to just make sure it doesn't happen again and enjoy the episode. Hey, I'm David Addison and welcome to episode 6 of the David Addison Show for the Iphonography Podcast Network Incorporated Group PLC, whatever it's called. Greg, I'm so sorry, dude, but you know me, I can't resist just making unfunny jokes, mainly at your expense. So today, though, I have a very, very special guest. His name is Laurence Bouchard. He's a street photographer, originally from Bath, England. Laurence moved to Tokyo, Japan in 2009, where he lives with his wife and daughter. When he moved, he took up photography with his iPhone, and the extraordinary quality of his work led him to being approached. That's correct grammar, right? It led him to being approached, who cares, by Apple in 2016 to represent Tokyo for their iPhone 7 campaign From Dusk Till Dawn. And more recently, in fact, very recently, just last week, he was the first recipient of the Mobiography Photographer of the Year award. So I'm very excited to have Laurence on the podcast. It's street photography is something I've always been fascinated by, and who better to have on the show to learn? Like, that's the thing. Again, I always say I want to learn, I want to improve myself, and who better to do that from than a photographer like Laurence Bouchard. So, Laurence, thank you so much for joining me. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Hi, David. All good here, thanks. Yeah.
You're originally from Bath in the south of England and you moved to Tokyo in 2009. And as someone who has also immigrated from the UK, I'm really keen to know why you moved and what that whole process was like.
Well, the reason was, at the time I wasn't into photography at that point, but I was DJing and I was into music and I met my wife, who's Japanese, and she was working and studying in London. And I think from meeting her, and then we had this kind of she wanted to move back to Japan, so we had this kind of 2-year sort of long distance thing, which was pretty difficult. And then I came over to Japan maybe every 3 months or every 6 months kind of thing. And I really liked it. I really just found it really refreshing and just quite different.
I only moved from England to Romania, and of course both countries were in the EU at the time, so it was relatively straightforward for me to stay there and work. But moving to Tokyo, though, it sounds like a much bigger leap, and I can't imagine that it was as straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it wasn't very easy, but well, in some ways, I mean, it's just, I think the reason we had this kind of 2 year long distance thing was I'd actually gone back to study accounting, so I was going to be an accountant, but that kind of wasn't really of any use when I moved here. I kind of moved here, and it's like, well, it's a different accounting system, and you don't speak any Japanese. So I think the kind of problem is you kind of get a little bit pigeonholed in what kind of work you can do if you don't speak the language, and that's a bit frustrating and continues to be frustrating. But I guess that's just I don't know. But then, other friends I know have really learnt the language and they've got really good, and they've managed to sort of carve out work in other areas. But yeah.
Is photography your full-time thing?
No, it's not. So basically, I was kind of doing a mix of things, really. I mean, first I was teaching full time, and then I was kind of combining that with some sort of extra work or modeling work, and which was sometimes really interesting because you'd meet photographers and you'd see how the set production works. And it was only the last 3 years that I mean, I had some odd photography work, but I think about 2 or 3 years ago, a friend of mine, who's now a friend, Lucas, he set up a company called I Explore. And I met him, and he was like, yeah, okay, we're doing all these workshops. Let's put your workshop on the website. And it was going really well. It was just getting busier and busier and busier. And I guess in Japan, they were really kind of pushing the tourists, like increasing for the Olympics. And then Corona came, and boom, that just stopped completely. So then it was like, yeah. So yeah.
Were you interested in photography before you moved?
Yeah. I mean, I first got into it when I was about 16, and I had like a film camera, and I was shooting quite a lot of stuff, not just still, but I also had a cine camera, so I was using a cine camera, and then and for a few years, really, up until what was at university, and I joined. I was in Goldsmiths, and then I joined Jessop's on New Oxford Street, which was their biggest, like their flagship shop. So they had a secondhand, professional, developing department. Also the digital, which back in those days was completely, was awful. But yeah, so I mean, I was kind of getting into it then, but I think in those days that was kind of where the internet was just kind of getting off and starting off, and I wasn't really aware of like photographers like Fan Ho and all these kind of people, and so like it was kind of. But I mean, I guess the other thing is Instagram's kind of changed photography, well, massively, for good and bad. Okay, so in those days, maybe you're going out, you're taking photos, and it's also kind of.
You say those days? You're talking late 90s, early 2000s, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I think of what about I guess from about 1997 to 2000, I was at university, and I remember just the internet was just kind of kicking off, and people doing stuff, but I guess when I first joined Instagram, then it kind of changes things because you're putting photos out, and people are seeing them. It's not just you, which was how it was before.
Nowadays, you can teach yourself photography online through YouTube and places like that. There's top-level photographers who upload videos and courses and share their knowledge. But back then, how did you teach yourself?
Just through books and trial and error, and
Tell me more about your trial and error experience. I really don't think enough people realize just how much trial and error goes into getting to your level.
Well, to be honest, I mean, the thing is, I think back in those days, I wasn't really that good. I mean, yeah, maybe I had an eye for it, and I did have a shot in a magazine at one point, and I think it was Orange. There was a company, like a phone company, Orange, and they were interested in doing some work with us, and which didn't work out in the end. But yeah, trial and error. You know, I mean, my brother was really into photography as well, and video, and I mean, well, we were shooting Super 8, and yeah, trial and error, just because, you know, sometimes you're like, I don't know what this setting does or what this setting does. And
you've mentioned that you've used a couple of different film cameras, but is it true that when you moved to Tokyo, you switched exclusively to iPhone?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is, so I think when I was in London, so basically, like, my camera broke, and I think I got it fixed, and then it wasn't really fixed, and it didn't work properly, and then, but at the same time, I had this interest in DJing and music, and the DJing was kind of bringing an income, you know. So I was going out DJing at bars and getting paid, and I was thinking, well, this is great, you know. And I was thinking the photography is not really bringing any kind of money in, so I just kind of switched and focused on the DJing stuff. And I think I hardly took a photo for about 10 years. Yeah, it wasn't until I moved to Tokyo, and then I got an iPhone.
In 2009, you're probably looking at a 3G or 3GS.
Oh, really? Yeah, it could have been, yeah. So, but I mean, you know, the quality's changed, you know, massively since then, and so yeah, I started taking photos with the iPhone, and my brother had an iPhone for a while, and he was like, yeah, the quality's, you know, it's pretty good. And yeah, it's funny. So then from that, I think I bought, there was this kind of these, I can't remember the company, but you could buy these like wide angle lenses you could stick on them, like a fisheye lens. I can't remember the company, but I was messing around with one of those, and I posted a photo online. And then this guy living in Tokyo called Simon Cordray, was a friend of a friend, was like, oh, is that one of those, you know, iPhone accessories? And so I ended up meeting him, and then through him, he introduced me to a couple of, well, I think, yeah, two photographers on Instagram called Mobiography. Do you know Mobiography?
I'm new to this whole world, so I'm hoping to learn from you who these people are.
Yeah, so there was Mobiography, and there was Michael. Well, Mobiography at the time, she was in Shanghai, and she was doing all this really interesting kind of street photography, but also kind of portraiture stuff, and, you know, just capturing the real kind of heart of Shanghai. And then Michael Kistler was actually in Tokyo, so I met him, and they were just doing these really cool things with the iPhone. And then through following them, I met another guy called Brendan O'Shea. And he's basically a guy based in sort of Ireland. And then a little bit later, a guy called Mark Fernley. And yeah, and then those were some of the early ones, you know, that I met.
So you're just networking with all these people?
Yeah. And, you know, it was kind of interesting. So, I mean, you know, you kind of, you know, sometimes feels like competitive. Okay, who's gonna post the best photo this week, or, you know, or whatever. Yeah.
Your street photography has inspired me to actually want to go out into my city, Manchester, and look at it in a whole different way. And I'm hoping from our conversation today you can give me some tips on where to start. Not so I can just copy you, but I want to learn how to look at things and see different compositions, because what's jumped out at me about your photography and what drew me to it was how you capture shapes. Like you typically use lines and you include deliberately long shadows that complement those shapes and lines. So could you talk me through how your photographs typically come together?
I think my method's kind of changed a bit recently, like after having a daughter like 5 years ago, and you've got less time. So I kind of do a lot of research before, or planning before, even to the point where I use Google Earth and search, areas of Tokyo and see, okay, can I find anywhere kind of interesting? So, I can, you can do that at home. You can just be sat here, you can have a glass of wine, thinking, okay, I haven't been to this area. Is there anything that looks good or interesting from above? And then you can even look for the vantage points. Okay, so this looks cool. Is there anywhere I can shoot it? I can climb to, or I can, well, not really climb, but I can get to where I can shoot it from above. So that's one thing. And I think probably about 5 years ago, I came across an app called Sun Surveyor, and basically you can search all over the place, and you can search different times of year, and you can save the locations. So, for example, so you can have all these different locations saved there, yeah, and then, okay, for example, you can, so this is like a park near here, and you can use a Google Street View. And so what you can do is you can see exactly where the sun, that line is going to show you where the sun's going to rise, where it's going to fall, and if any buildings are going to block it or not. Because before that, I was kind of sometimes going to locations, traveling 30 minutes, maybe an hour, and getting there, and it's in the shade, or some buildings block the light, and you're just like, well, it's just a waste. I've just wasted my day, It's just, So yeah, it's amazing, and you can even change, time of year, So yeah, that's a big, and save all the locations. So it's a really big thing. So yeah, basically, I just kind of, searched. I'll search the internet and try and find as many. Search lines, Tokyo, or try and find as many locations, as well as follow as many photographers based in Tokyo or Japan as possible, just to see what locations are coming up on Instagram. And then it's using Sun Surveyor and sort of planning, okay, when's the sun going to hit it, when I'm going to, that kind of thing.
Even though you do all of this planning, your photographs still seem very natural and spontaneous. So are you finding the composition, like with all the shapes, casting the shadows that you like, and then are you just playing the waiting game, just waiting for someone to come along?
Well, yeah, basically looking for... So first, basically, I guess, yeah, the main thing is the location, and then just trying to find, what would best suit that. So you might be there at the location, you could be scanning around, thinking, okay, and like for example, I was kind of on a bridge last year, and I saw this security guard, and I saw his shadow, and I just thought, okay, yeah, I've got to run about 20 meters there, so I can see he's going to his shadow is going to hit underneath there. It doesn't always work out, but it's I think, like the guy I mentioned before, Brendan O'Shea, he wrote an article called I think it was "Photography is not 90% frustration," and I think that's it's true. There's a lot of frustration, and you can go out and sometimes come back with nothing, and it's just like, oh yeah, that was just terrible, a waste of time kind of thing. But the other thing I would say is I started a note called Shadow Records. So although I use the the Sun Surveyor, I log each location. So every time I go to that location, I'll log the date, And if it's sunny, I log, okay, how good was the light? How good were the shadows? So I sort of give it like a 9 out of 10 kind of thing. And so you've always got that to fall back on. So you can look at, okay, I've been to this location. Okay, have I been here in October or November? Okay, all right, November 1 o'clock it was bad. Okay, forget about that. So you've got that to rely on as well.
Would you say shapes and shadows are your thing? Was it a deliberate choice, or did you fall into it by accident?
I think there's something I fell into, but I wouldn't say it was just shadows. I mean, I like rain, or snow is probably my favorite, but I mean, it's quite rare in Tokyo. I mean, I think since I've been here, we've only had one really amazing snowfall, and it was a blast. I went out, and the only bad thing was my camera battery. I mean, I don't only shoot with the iPhone, I shoot with Sony as well. And so at night, I think I prefer the Sony. The iPhone's not quite as good. Sometimes you get back and it's a bit bitty, the quality. But I'm using an iPhone 10. I don't know how it's changed now with the 13, but yeah, with snow, I mean, it's similar. I mean, I've still when we had a big snowfall here, I still kind of planned the locations, and okay, this has got good light, this has got good light.
Apart from the quality in low light and maybe the focal length of the lens, would you say that the gear doesn't matter to what you do?
Yeah, generally, I mean, I think on a good sunny day, yeah, I'll go some places, and I'll take my Sony camera, and I'll also take the iPhone, of course, and sometimes I'll just do a few shots of the iPhone as well, and I'll get back, and sometimes I'll be like, I kind of prefer the iPhone shot here. And other days I prefer the Sony one, and so it varies. I mean, like, so I think I brought like I think the 55mm for the Sony, which is an amazing lens. But I used to have an Olympus, the OM5 Mark II or something, and I think I had a 50 for that. And the blur quality on that was amazing, which I haven't really managed to get with the Sony 55. So I kind of regret selling it in a way, because I sold it for nothing, because I just thought, okay, I've got the 55 for the Sony, I'll probably be able to get the same kind of blur quality, but it's just not, it hasn't been the same.
When you shoot with the iPhone, are you using the stock camera app?
Yeah, just the native camera. I mean, I did try a few others out, but yeah, in the end, I just found the native camera to be best. And I guess the other thing was I'd always shoot in black and white, usually pretty much, because you can just convert back anyway afterwards, so it doesn't really matter. But which is great thing about the iPhone, which is, with the Sony you can't do that. So
when did you get to the level where you thought you were ready to start taking on clients and charging for your work and teaching photography?
Yeah, I mean, that was I don't know, that was quite late. So I mean, I think when I came to Tokyo, there were two things. There was one, I got the iPhone and the camera was pretty good. I think the other thing was the environment was really fresh, and especially kind of places like Shibuya and Shinjuku, they kind of had this kind of Blade Runner feel about them. So it was really inspiring, and you're just like, wow, this is just, which unfortunately I think is disappearing slowly. That they're kind of, changing the city. The city's changing a lot, and in some ways I feel it's not changing for the best, The neon's changing, and they're changing it for I can't remember what, but they're changing it for a different kind of neon, or decreasing the neon. And
what are they trying to save electricity? Trying to save the world or something?
I'm not sure, but I'm not really sure what the reason is really. But the same thing in Hong Kong, there's a guy called Timu. I don't know if you've ever heard of Timu.
No, I'm making a list of all of these names and I'm going to look them all up later.
Yeah, so Timu, he spent some time in Hong Kong, and I think he might have wrote an article about it or document. I read something on his blog about how in Hong Kong a similar thing happened where they were just kind of getting rid of the neon, and it's crazy, you know. It's just kind of why, why? That's what makes it so good, you know. But yeah. But yeah. So sorry. So you were saying about the photograph. Okay, so with the workshops, that wasn't until much later. And how did the workshops come about? Really, I think it was just advice from friends like. Maybe Brendan and Mark Fernley, and saying, look, you should do a workshop, you can make money doing this. And initially I wasn't really interested in it, but actually when I started, and Lucas, who works at iExplore, was a big help. And actually, yeah, when I started doing the workshops, it was really fun, and you'd actually even learn things. You'd actually discover new shots, or you know, you'd have some photographers who were actually really pretty experienced, and you'd even learn from them. And their kind of reason for doing the workshop might be just like one guy said, okay, like I've come to Tokyo and sometimes I've seen some of your locations, but if you ever come to Tokyo, sometimes you'll go to a station and there'll be like 20 or 30 different exits, and you can end up, you know, wasting an hour just trying to find you know, the right exit to find the right location. It's, you know, so I think some people who did the workshops were not so interested in learning so much as sort of finding the locations and, you know, that kind of thing. But other people wanted to study more, or
yeah, maybe they came to network.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I went to, I think, Vietnam about 3 years ago, and I did a workshop there, and I didn't feel like I needed so much help with composition. I mean, the thing is, actually, the day before the workshop, I was messing around in the sea with my Sony camera, and Sony's the back's got a flip screen, and stupidly, I had the flip screen up, and this wave came and it hit my leg, and it bounced off and hit the screen, and I was like, oh no. And and then I was looking through it, and it started changing colors, and then 5 minutes later it was dead. And so I did the photography workshop all with the iPhone, and everybody had their SLRs, and they were like, where's your SLRs? And I took it to this guy. In Hoi An, and he really did try to fix it. I mean, he really went out of his way to try and fix it, and he couldn't in the end. I gave him some money anyway. I was like, yeah, you know, you've yeah, he took it apart, and he did try to fix it, but he just said, oh, I couldn't get a part to fix it.
Then in 2016, you ended up doing the iPhone 7 campaign for Tokyo. So could you talk to me about how that came about? Did Apple slide into your DMs? Like, how did they contact you, and what did they say?
Yeah, so I think that was like about 5 or 6 years ago. So yeah, no, they just contacted me on Instagram and on Flickr as well, and said that, you know, you're interested in doing the kind of the iPhone 7 campaign. And so yeah, that was great. But I think I to be honest, I think I misunderstood. It wasn't until afterwards that I really understood that. I mean, they did say the focus was on neon, but I kind of understood it as like, okay, maybe some people might be doing shadows, or some people might be doing, and I wanted to do more of that, but they were kind of pushing the neon thing, and I don't think it was until the campaign came out, and I was like, all right, so you only wanted neon. I was like, if you've made that, if I'd known that, yeah.
So what was their brief exactly? Did they just say, neon, go?
No, it changed a lot. I mean, they kind of changed the brief quite a lot. So they would ask for ideas, and I'd one night I'd send the ideas in, and then the next they were like, oh, yeah, your ideas weren't really big enough. Can you think big? We've got a big budget. I even think helicopters or things like that. And I was like, oh wow, okay. So now I'd stay up till 4 a.m. coming up with ideas for that, and then next morning I'd be going, no, forget about that. Think natural, and be like, wow, I was up till 4 a.m. Yeah. So I mean, but that was not with Apple. That was kind of through an agency that were working for Apple. But I mean, yeah, they were great. I mean, the team were great and really fun and supportive, and but I mean, the main idea of the campaign, it was dusk till dawn. So you can go out and shoot, all night kind of thing.
Do you know which of your photos it was that put you on their radar?
Not really, but they had contacted me like maybe a year before or 6 months before, maybe I think it was a year before, for a previous campaign, and they wanted to use some photos, and which they didn't in the end. They didn't use them, but actually, because they were asking like, do you know the people in the photos? And of course, I kind of wanted to be in the campaign, so I lied about it, and and then they were like, we need, because they were kind of like silhouettes, and and I was a bit worried. I was thinking, well, if they do use them, and if they're on some billboard and the people see them, they might be like, yeah, that's me. But it didn't work out in the end. And then basically they came back a year later, and we got this other campaign going. So yeah, it was all good in the end. Yeah.
After the campaign was launched, did you see a big increase in followers or interest in your work?
Not really. I mean, so I guess this is the thing. I think, so even though that they've kind of picked these photographers to work on the iPhone 7 campaign, then they had this, sorry, that's my daughter messing around behind. But they had this thing, so that they would just say, okay, so this is, I think it was Laurence, or, it's fine, it's no problems. No, it's cool. So I think they just had Laurence B. And
thanks for the credit.
So like one of my friends in Tokyo, he said his girlfriend was into photography, and he said, yeah, she saw the campaign and she was like, I can't find anything. And she said, I've been Googling Laurence B. Where, I can't find him. So yeah, I don't know if I really got that much. I mean, yeah, maybe a few followers more increased, but it wasn't that much of a change, I think.
I'm assuming they compensated you financially.
Yeah, they did, and yeah.
Oh, good. I was hoping you weren't going to say that they just promised you exposure or something like that.
No, they were good, and the compensation was good, and that I could reinvest in getting a Sony camera, which I really wanted to do. And
how did you feel after seeing your photos on a huge billboard next to the Apple logo? Did that inspire you to keep going, to do better?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think I don't know, my feeling with photography, I don't know if it's really more. It's in some ways it's kind of an escape, or it's like some people say it's kind of almost like a kind of meditation, you kind of, or with the editing, or even just, to be honest, when I go out and take photos, sometimes I just switch my phone to like airplane mode, and I just don't want to be bothered, just be by myself, and
Yeah, it's very interesting how you use it as an escape. Do you want to do photography full time?
Yeah, I mean that would be nice, but I mean I think after the iPhone thing, I tried to do some fashion photography, and didn't really enjoy it. I found it kind of boring, really. I found it, but I mean, I don't know. There are certain portrait work I'd like to get into, but just normal fashion photography was just like no, it's just not really interesting.
Is that street portraiture or posed portraiture in a studio?
Street portraiture or or I don't know, or even trying to work in a studio and do effects and do something like that. But something that aligns more with street. So it couldn't just be fashion; it would have to be something in a way that aligns more with street photography. Because just from my experience, just going out with, and because the model agency I'm with. For a while, that I was working with them, and they were saying we've got some new models, go and shoot them, and I just wasn't really enjoying it, and it wasn't. I don't know. I just found it a bit sort of boring, to be honest.
I see on your Instagram you've got a few street portraits that look really natural, like you've just put your camera in someone's face, taken the picture, and then like ran away or something like that. I can't imagine doing that myself here in Manchester. Like, do you ask them first, or you just snap the photo and walk off?
No, I mean, I've tried approaching people, but I don't know, quite a few times that they've just declined, so I just don't bother asking anymore. In that particular photo, though, that was like shot through, it was a smoking section outside, so there was like a screen. And so I was shooting through the screen, and the guy clocked me taking his photo, but he didn't seem bothered at all. I mean, he actually seemed to just be like, okay. So, I mean, he just kind of gave me a look as if he didn't really care. And so I just thought, okay, well, great, I mean, to be honest, I don't know, I've never had a bad reaction, really.
My friend Sasha and I from Belarus, we went out shooting in Bridgetown, Barbados with our phones, and the locals, they were great, very friendly and very happy to have their photo taken. But when we went out in Kingstown, which is in St. Vincent, also in the Caribbean, the locals ended up throwing rocks at us. So it must be like different places. I imagine in a city like Tokyo's that's photographed so much, the locals must just be used to it.
Yeah, and I think especially if you're a foreigner, they just figure you're a tourist. Well, maybe not now, but I can't think of a time where anyone's ever really got angry or never really. I mean, in Vietnam also, Vietnam was amazing. They just didn't seem to care at all. It was pretty similar to Tokyo, maybe even less. They'd even like bring it on, I don't know. I did have a couple of Germans on my workshop once, and they were saying in Germany you just couldn't do it. They couldn't do street photography like that. But I'll tell you a funny story though. Like going back to Brendan, it was an app. It's called 1 Hour Photo. So basically, okay, you take a photo, but it's like the gimmick or kind of thing is you have to wait 1 hour for the photo to come on to your phone. So he said, I think he was in Madrid, and he said he found this cool location. He just stood there and he took this photo as this guy went past. And then the Spanish guy turned around to him and said, "You just took my photo, yeah?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Show it to me." And he was like, "Well, I can't because it's on a 1 hour photo app, and it's going to take 1 hour to come." And the guy is like getting really angry and pissed off, saying, "Stop lying to me! Show me the photo." And he's like, "Well, no, look, seriously, it's 1 hour photo. If you want, we can meet back here in an hour, and I can show it to you." so it's kind of but I think the woman photographer I was talking about before, Mimo Care, I think she said sometimes she actually approaches the people and has a bit of a chat, and you can see like the connection sometimes with the people she takes, maybe the eye connection, and it's really cool. But I've never really managed to do that. Really, it's just kind of random Yeah, like that shot you were talking about was just like the guy was just didn't care. He was just like almost kind of posing for me with, yeah.
Are there any composition tips you can give me? Are you using any like well-known composition techniques in particular?
Not really. I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty much when I shoot, I always have the grid lines on the screen. Especially on the iPhone. I mean, I quite often just put them up, but like, no, I think the composition is just kind of just walking around and just until it feels right.
Just until it feels right.
Yeah, I mean that's the main thing I would say about composition. Yeah, just until it feels right. Really, there's no other, nothing else that really comes into it. It's just kind of okay. Yeah, that feels good, or that looks good.
On a previous podcast, my guest, Natalie Chufo, was saying how she doesn't share what she thinks people will like. She shares what she likes. Would you say that you're the same, or are you more conscious of engagement?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, the thing is, this is, again, one of the downsides about Instagram is, basically, like, okay, these photos are going to get lots of likes or going to be popular. These photos aren't. And which could actually affect, the kind of photos you're taking, which is a negative thing about Instagram. But I think you just got to ignore that and just be like, okay, I like it. I don't care if it doesn't do well on Instagram. I think it's good. And just stick to what you think. Because otherwise you've got like algorithms of Instagram. Dictating what you're taking, and that's a bad thing. So yeah, I think you just gotta just follow. If you think it's good, go with it. But yeah, even if other people don't appreciate it, So yeah. I mean, it's the only way you can be. I think. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, what I would say is like. I find that with Flickr, actually, it's much more accommodating and, compared to Instagram. Like there'll be some photos I think, oh, yeah, I really like this photo. I put it on Instagram and it won't do very well, but I put it on Flickr and it'll be appreciated a lot more. So, yeah, even different platforms, you get sort of different, so... Yeah, I mean, it's true. So there have been some photos I thought, oh, yeah, I love it. And I stick it on Instagram and it's hardly any, not really doing very well. And I put it on Flickr and it will be on in Explore and doing really well. And I'll be like, well, I don't know. I guess that's one of the reasons I hate Instagram, really. I think as soon as they started, building in these, at least with Flickr, you can see it on a big screen. Flickr, I think it gets a lot of flack, or I mean, there are some annoying things about it, but at least, in defense, I mean, one of the cool things, I mean, is, if you become a full member, you can, you can back up all your photos on there, and one of which I really love is, when you upload a photo, you can upload it to the highest quality, and also you can download it to the highest. So it's really handy, I mean, I tell you, one of the things that really annoys me about Instagram is, how sometimes you shoot a photo and then I have to use some other app like what you call it, like a cropping thing, so I can crop it in to fit. It's just why can't that be part of Instagram? Why do I have to use some? Surely they can sort this out. That just bothers me.
Some executive from Instagram just straight up admitted recently that Instagram is not a photo sharing platform anymore, and it basically wants to become the next TikTok. Whatever, like if they want to do that, then that's up to them. So tell me about the Mobiography Photographer of the Year award that you've won.
Yeah, well, okay, so Yeah, Mobiography, they've been going for a few years now, and I mean, I can't say exactly, but yeah, 5 to 10 years. I'm not really sure, but yeah, their focus is the magazine and Mobiography magazine, and yeah, so there are some various competitions for just smartphone competitions like. I can't remember, but there's one where you can only enter shots with an iPhone, which I think is actually Apple behind it, but no one knows. And I think there's a really good iPhone photographer. Hold on, just drop her name in a minute. Hold on, her name is Dimpy Balatia. Okay, so yeah, it was the IPP Awards. Okay, so it's just smartphone, but it's only iPhones, which makes me think maybe it's Apple that are really behind. If it's only Apple smartphones, you can enter. And yeah, she's an amazing smartphone photographer. There's another girl as well who's really good, called Soasa, and yeah, she takes these amazing. These amazing silhouettes in color and stuff. So she's really good. But yeah, basically, so with the smartphone competitions, there was the APPA. What was it? I think I said it was just a minute ago. Yeah, that's it. IPPA Awards, and then there was another one called the Mobile Photography Awards, and I entered that a few times, and I won the street category a couple of times. And then, this year, Mobiography started their first competition. But I think one of the differences with Mobiography is they have a magazine, which the other competitions didn't, which I think kind of makes a difference. I think, they're I'm not saying the other competitions aren't passionate, but there's a lot of passion behind Mobiography, and the guy, Andy, who runs it, and Brendan, who I mentioned before, Brendan O'Shea, he's does a lot for Mobiography, and also I think some of the judges like Mark Fernley was one of the judges this time. So I think they've got big potential for the future, especially with the magazine, and as a sort of it's worth looking into.
And is it true you're putting a book together?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm working on a book, my first book, and it's going to be released with a company called, I think it's a Spanish company called Amalusa Publishing. And so kind of hoping to get it released by the end of the year. Mainly it's just that, and hopefully we'll have the workshops running. I mean, they're available through iExplore, but... it kind of depends when the government opens up the country for tourism again. So,
will the book be purely photos, or will you include some captions and information?
Yeah, there may be some captions, but yeah, it would just be like maybe like 80 or 90 photos, just what I've picked out of, which I like, and pretty simple, really. That's it, really. Just
And that was my conversation with Laurence Bouchard. I really enjoyed it. I really learned a lot just about the stuff that you don't see, the planning. It looks to me like, when you look at his pictures, it looks like, he's just, you get the impression, or at least I do, that he just pulled out his iPhone, composition, click that, and it happens to be amazing, But no, that's not the case. The trial, the error, the planning, the research, using these apps, Sun Surveyor, his Notes app, and things like that. That's just all the stuff that you don't see that leads to creating pictures like that. And again, obviously this is an iPhone podcast. He's an iPhone photographer. He uses different cameras as well, but I don't like to go too much into the gear. And I did mention to Laurence, we didn't explicitly say, but I hope it came across, the camera in his case, apart from that blur that he mentioned, is pretty much interchangeable. I reckon you could swap the camera, that he uses put another camera in his hands that's supposedly like a lot worse, you know, and his pictures would, like, because the camera isn't doing the research for him, the camera's not planning the shots, the camera's not composing the picture. You know, there's obviously different quality to the photos, like you mentioned, different blur quality and things like that, different low light performance, but for the most part, you know, it's mainly his composition, how he uses these shapes and shadows and things that are the main draw for his photos. So I learned a lot. I can't wait to take my phone out and go and do some street photography in Manchester. It'll be interesting to see how people react. I won't be sticking my camera in front of people's faces and stuff. It's mainly more like I want to try that silhouette thing. Like try that app that he mentioned. Look at some of these photographers who he mentioned as well, and learn and expand and go from there. So I hope you've had a positive experience as I did listening to Laurence. Thanks for tuning into the podcast, and I'll see you in the next one.